What if I told you there was a way that you could earn more profit and close more sales at the exact same time, and it all came down to the presentation of your offer to your customer or client? And the good news is this process works even if you struggle at sales. You don't have to add anything to your product or service lineup that's new. And once you learn this skill, you can use it on anything that's a low ticket item. I've seen it as low as $50, all the way up to high ticket items. I've seen this as large as 6 or 7 plus figure offers. All it comes down to is offer stacking. And once you actually learn this, you can use it for everything. Like I said, it's a skill that you'll be able to master and integrate into any sales process in any business that you take on. So if you don't know who I am, by the way, my name is Alexander. I work one-on-one with business owners to actually empower them to change their sales, to change their marketing, to change their operations, because it is all about the fundamentals. When you get those down, then your business thrives. It's not about some sort of hack, cheat code, secret, some sort of algorithm break or tweak. It is all about the basics. And I make videos like these because I want you to get to the good part faster of being a successful business owner and not going through those headaches. So what we're going to do is break this down into 3 easy steps that you can implement in any business, product or service, low or high ticket. And if you stick around to the very end, I'll even give you a 4th bonus cheat sheet that you could take right now to make the best offer stack that just completely demolishes the competition, that makes your offer seem so good that people would be lining up to your door to buy it, and you're going to be able to charge more, earn more, close bigger sales, and you'll be able to use this technique every time with that bonus cheat sheet, regardless of the type of business. So let's go ahead and start with the first step. Before we begin, and before we get a big understanding and a firm grasp on what this can do for your business, I want you to kind of put yourself in a thought exercise, and that is to understand what it is your product or service is actually doing, what it's providing, what it is made up of. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're selling, but I need to understand what I'm getting. So what you want to do is to break it down. And that means that essentially you want to take your existing product or existing service that you are already selling right now and start to piecemeal it or break it into its smaller components. Think about it like ingredients in a cake. And this is something where you're probably going to look at it reflectively as the whole package. You're going to say, well, I'm a CPA, I do accounting, I'm a fitness coach, I do weight loss, I'm a videographer, I shoot videos. But what goes into those things? What you want to start to do is to break this down into what is called a feature list. And your feature list will consist of all the things that you're doing both in front of the client or customer and also behind the scenes. For instance, if I was selling weight loss, it's probably not as simple as just a workout program. I might have something like a nutrition guide, a gear list, accountability text, all of these different things that I make up inside of my weight loss program. And you're going to want to map every single one of those out as your feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4, every single thing that you're doing behind the scenes that the customer ideally or client isn't quite seeing yet, they isn't grasping yet. And you want to break down each one of those. Write these down into a list. Actually break down all of your features, what it is that you're doing to get them from point A to point B. The next thing you're going to want to do is to start to understand a brief description of them. And this is going to be your breakdown of what that thing consists of. So if I were selling something like a website service, that might include all of the different components like hosting, security, plugin updates, analytics. If I were selling videography, that might mean scripting, storyboarding, lighting, talent acquisition. If I was selling weight loss, that's going to be the nutrition guide, the accountability text, the gear list, all of those things, but also break down what those are doing, what that looks like. So start to understand the description of each one of those things in a way that is understandable from both your perspective and, more importantly, the person you're trying to sell them to. So once you have your feature list written out, you should have a good idea of everything that goes into that component and everything that goes into that actual offer. It's really important that nothing is off the table. At the end of the day, you're probably doing a lot more work than you actually realize, especially if you're handing it off to somebody else. And if you don't exemplify that, if you don't talk about that, if you don't make that apparent, then a lot of the times what will happen is you're over here trying to get your customer to buy the thing, and they're kind of scratching their head going, I don't know. Why is it so expensive? What does it do? What is it made of? Why should I care? Think about it. If you were trying to sell a pair of pants to somebody, and all of a sudden you had two versions of this where I can go down to the local discount clothing store and get a pair of jeans for $10, or you're trying to come at me and say, buy my jeans, they're $99, you would really want to tell me why that is worth $99. What are the materials it's made of? Does it have a warranty? What does it do differently? Is this some sort of exclusive cloth? Is it weather resistant? Is it snag resistant? Every single component in that pair of pants would need to be broken down into your feature set and then a brief description, which leads us into the next thing where we actually start to talk about why those descriptions matter and how to structure them. But before we get to that point, I want to recap on what you should have done so far. The first thing you're going to want to do is list out everything and anything that it is that goes into your offer, into your sales pitch, into your end product or end service. Think about this again like the ingredients in the cake. Every single small component that you're doing will start to stack up. You should have a list that ideally is pretty long. There's no such thing, I would say, as something that's just an off-the-shelf commodity. If you're selling dirt and rocks, sure, but where did you get that dirt? Where did you source those rocks? Why are they important? Why would a landscaper want to know them? Why do they want to choose this bark over another bark? Why do they want to choose these river stones over some dark granite? Understand that nothing is off the table. It would be presumptuous. It would be almost ignorant to assume that the person you're selling this thing to understands all the finer things, the little components that you do day in, day out to make this thing better. So put it all down. And then once you have that, you're going to want to start to price and actually describe the outcome of these things. So what we're doing now is price plus Y. So once you have all your features listed out and a little description, at least maybe one sentence long, you're going to want to restructure these into a different formula. And if you haven't already watched the video on how I sell these things or how to do value mapping when you're actually selling this type of thing, click on the link in the description below because it's very important to understand how to prospect and how to convey this value to somebody. Otherwise, if you're just giving them something like this, they might not still understand it. So go ahead and watch that video in the description below where I talk about how to actually sell this thing once you're done with it. But once you actually price it, or once you actually describe it, you're going to have, let's say, 3 core features. You might have many of them. Actually, let me formulate this a little better. You might have many features. Your list could be 10 pieces, it could be 50 pieces, it could be 100 pieces of things you're doing to get that customer from point A to point B. It all depends on how many little moving pieces or how many grains of sand are involved in your offer. But then what you want to start to do is restructure the description in this format. You have your feature, which will get you the benefit, which will get you the outcome. And every single one of these should be outlined in this structure because your customer or client's not really going to connect the dots. So unfortunately, you do have to break it down step by step. Let's go back to that pair of pants. Let's say I wanted to sell you a $500 pair of pants. And I said, you know what? These have tech fabric. Okay, what does that mean? Well, that means that you, as the apparel expert, went out there, sourced extremely high quality fabrics, and you went through this whole process to ultimately get them to where they're at. Then you need to understand what benefit that gives them and what outcome that means. So then all of a sudden the narrative goes from, yeah, these $500 pair of pants have tech fabric, for example. That means that they are weather resistant, rain resistant, snag resistant, so that you're never going to have to buy another pair of pants again. The feature is the tech fabric. The benefit is the weather resistance, the rain resistance, the wick resistance, the breathability. And then the outcome means that you never have to buy another pair of pants again. And you can keep those pants regardless of whether you're on a hot, sunny day or even if you're out in the cold. That right there exemplifies everything so that I understand why this thing is important. And then what you're going to want to do is, let's say you've gotten to this point where every single thing, now I understand what the feature is, what it does for me, and ultimately what outcome I'm getting from that in my list. You want to start to price these out. So let's say, for instance, that I was selling a $10,000 website, and I might include a feature in there that's SEO, that gives you discoverability, and then that means you get more clicks. You get, let me just make that grammatically correct. You get more clicks. So on that list item that is now in my first portion of what is called the offer stack, I'm going to tell you, hey, we're going to include 3 months of free SEO inside of this, or we're going to include SEO just by default in this package so that you can get more discoverability, which means that you get more clicks and ultimately more paying customers. Normally, this thing would be X amount, and you want to price this ideally 10 to 5x above market rates, or at least comparable individual market rates. What does that mean? So let's say that you have this huge, hyper compelling offer for a service or for a product out there, and you have all these little components. It might not cost you a lot to add this particular feature set, but to them, it might be extremely valuable. So let's go to this weight loss example and say that I give you a nutrition guide. So that means no guesswork. Oop. So I'm selling weight loss and I give you a free nutrition guide. And that means you can stay on your diet at work, home, or vacation. So what I'm going to give you a free nutrition guide. It's going to detail everything you need to eat so you don't need to put in the guesswork and fall off your diet, fall off your weight loss goals. And it's going to work even if you're at work, home, or office so that you don't have to struggle. That is pretty hyper compelling. But in the end, that might cost you maybe nothing to make. Once you have that PDF, it might be as simple as just replacing their name at the beginning. Or it might be changing it based on the different weight loss goals. Maybe you have a 10-pound version, a 20-pound version, a 30-pound version. So it might cost you nothing to make that, but in reality, it still holds value. So don't tell them that, but understand that if you were to go to a comparable person, that it might cost them hours of labor. So let's say this is $100 of market value. They look at that number and say, man, I'm getting that for free, or I'm getting that for a lower rate. Then you need to understand that they are looking at that from a new perspective where they see that as higher value. They see your offer overall as higher value. They should say to themselves, all this for that, once you start to stack each one of these components. Now, the hard part about this that most people have is pricing. And there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can model. So literally secret shop somebody. If you were going to make that nutrition guide, go somewhere on the internet, find a copywriter or find a nutritionist, ask them how much it would cost to make this thing, look up their pricing. That is the market value. And you can even exemplify that even more so by saying, okay, now it's 5x this amount because it's a hyper premium nutritional guide, or maybe even 10x that amount. But in reality, it's always more expensive to try and put pieces together in most instances than it is every single time for them to just go through you. So for instance, if I was going to make that $500 pair of pants, I would have to go source the fabric, go to an apparel designer, have a manufacturer ship them out to me, even design and create the thing, build the thing, send it to me. My margins would be insanely low. I don't have the economics of scale. I'm not making enough pants to make a profit, but hey, I sell these pants and I've made 500 of these, so that means that I'm able to sell them at a better rate than you, and I'm able to use the economics of scale to my factor where I'm buying tons of this cloth, so you get a better deal and also get a better pair of pants at the end of the day. That is how the presentation needs to be shifted. So start to model it either based on true market rates. So look at your market and find somebody who can do this thing. 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, see what they would charge, kind of average it out. Or use your worth. And this means that normally, if you were to look at somebody else who would one-off this service purely as a commodity, let's say that you just hired somebody who was going to do this from start to finish, they're probably going to have wildly different rates. If I'm a nutritionist and I make a nutrition guide, you might have somebody who just started and there's somebody who has 10 years of experience under their belt. Look at your worth. What is an hour of your time worth, and how many hours would it take for you to have created this guide over and over and over again? Each time, let's say you were to sit there, do the research, go through the whole process, find the nutritional elements, the calorie counting, the food, the dishes, all of that could take you days to create that. And that might be something where it could cost you thousands of dollars potentially to do it. But at the end, you want to have a price that is always higher, or always, at least in most instances, 10 to 5x the comparable market rate. And at the end of this, you should have each component. So this is your feature. This is your feature 1, benefit 1, outcome 1. And all of these are part of your first line item. And you'll repeat this process over and over again. And normally it would be a certain amount of money, X amount of dollars. That is the value that you want to assign to it based on market competition, or the value you want to assign to it based on your worth. You want to do this process for every single other item that you have within your original feature list. And this is the part where things get a little dicey, because at the end of the day, you really do have to understand that people are going to have different value weights. If all of a sudden you're selling that workout program to 10 people, some of them might just want the nutrition guide. Some of them want the accountability. Some of them don't know what gear to buy. But at the end of the day, these prices that ultimately should be a reflection of perceived value. Normally, it would cost you X amount of dollars to do this with somebody else. This is what the going rate is, because your goal is to increase the perceived value of that thing, to either get it to the point where it's free or it is a lower tier item. But at the end of the day, you're still selling the big ticket. You're still selling the big core offer. And it doesn't matter if it's something that's $100 or $100,000. At the end, each one of these can be used as either bargaining chips, as free bonuses, or they can be used to get that better justification and show better perceived value on that package. So for instance, if they're struggling to say, why is this so expensive? Or I don't know if this could work for me, you're able to take each one of these things and start to line by line say, you know, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, you're going to get this. And normally it would be this amount of money, this amount of money, this amount of money, but I'm going to throw in that just for free. I'm going to throw in this for this rate. And what you want to do is to not focus on just the individual components, but ultimately you want to go to the big ticket, to the golden ticket at the end, where they feel like they're getting a killer deal. And that's what we'll talk about in just a second here. But I want to recap. Now that we're at this stage, we should ultimately have our price and our why outlined. It does this, so you get this benefit, so you get this outcome. And normally that would cost you this amount of money. Every single piece of your offer should have this laid out. And then once you actually do that, you'll have a hyper compelling list with a huge number at the end, ideally, that is often 10 to 5x the total amount of what you're charging for the final price. So once you actually do that, you want to show and launch. So now you should have a list of all these different components that give you different little outcomes. So we're going to give you X, which is going to let you do this one thing, and it's also going to give you this great outcome A. Basically, each one of these should have some dollar amount attached to them. The variables don't really matter. I'm using them just to illustrate that this right here should be factored in at the final price. And that's your huge golden ticket. So let me give you a real world example of what this might look like. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to sell a workout package, going back to the weight loss one. and I wanted to sell that package for $1,000 for each person. Let's actually, you know what? We're going to add another zero on that. My workout package is $10,000. What would you need to buy a $10,000 package? Well, if you've done your value or your offer stack correctly, this should be close to the final price that you want to sell them on, but the actual price that you get when you're adding them should ideally be 10x that. And what you're looking for is a scenario where it sounds like such a killer deal that that is what you're displaying, you're showing them, and you're trying to launch them into that mindset of, my goodness, this is such a great offer. I have to tap into this now. By the way, if all of this is still too confusing, you're not sure how it applies to your business, or you're not really sure how to actually make it work for your business, I fully understand. I need to see somebody lead it by example as well. And that is why, if you are interested, you can click the link below and I'll give you your completely free growth strategy session where I will give you the play-by-play, step-by-step guide on how to apply this specifically to your business without any of the guesswork. All you have to do is click the link below and you can book your one-on-one private session, or you can even DM me on Facebook, whichever is easier in your preferred style. Let's break this down in a real world example. Say you wanted to do dog walking as your main core offer. Now, comparatively, they can get dog walking anywhere. It's somebody with a pair of hands, walk around the block. But you want to go further than that. You want to provide even more value. So you list all the things out that beyond dog walking you do. Let's say you do grooming. You focus on their health. So their fitness, you give them a good run, maybe you bike with them, you make sure they're active, you transport them, so you take them to the park or you socialize them, you take them to other dog parks, they meet other dogs, they get new friends, you're making content, taking little pictures so that they can share with their friends and family about their cute dog on the walk. You're doing all these different components, and normally if they went to the groomer, it's going to probably cost them, I don't know, let's say $100. Health, man, a dog trainer would probably cost you $500. Transport, that's another 100 right there every week. Social, to get somebody to follow you around, that's another 100. Another 100 to do the same thing to actually make content. All of these out there. So you would end up spending an insane amount of money to just get somebody to do this for $900 a week. Can you digest $900 a week for a dog walker? Probably not. It's a very, very powerful dog walker. But if I was able to do this for you for just $90 a week, which, mind you, happens to be 1/10 of what the market rate would be, you could fit that into there. This is the area where you're presenting them with this number. This is the one they're anchoring about. Dang, that's expensive. If I have to go to all these other people and deal with all these other moving logistics, that is the problem that they're going to look for. And then they're going to look to you for guidance. So you want to suddenly launch them into that mind space or that headspace of what a great deal this is. So ideally, at the end of it, you want to present this in a way that seems so compelling that they would always say yes. So you would have your feature, benefit, outcome, feature, benefit, outcome, feature, benefit, outcome, on and on and on. Dollar amount for each one of these, dollar amount for each one of these. And then at the end, your big number. But then you say to them, you know what? We're not going to do it for 10 to 5x the normal amount of a market rate. You're going to get all of this and all of this for just this amount here. This is now your exclusive investment rate. And that does a couple key things in their mind beyond just making it seem like you're a better deal. That also educates them on the amount of work involved. Because suddenly they're not looking at a dog walker, they're looking at all of this other value that is going into this process, into this service. Same thing with a product. If I was trying to sell you an iPhone, for instance, and you had never heard of this, you would be like, why am I going to spend $1,300, $1,400 on this glass and metal slab? But if suddenly I say, hey, it's got iMessage so you can constantly communicate with friends and family, play games, so that way text messages aren't so boring, or it's got FaceTime so you can instantly video call friends and family. You don't need to download any new apps and stress about if they have the right right thing. It works with every iPhone. It's got a retina display so that you can see everything crisp, clear outside. You don't have to squint your eyes when you're looking in direct sunlight trying to read a book or go through that next process of showing your friend a funny video. And normally it would cost you all this money to get this thing, this thing, this thing. But instead, I'm going to give you all of the features that the iPhone has for just this price. Imagine how much compelling that would be if they saw everything that went into the process, if they lined up and saw everything that they were getting for such an incredible deal. That is the power of offer stacking. You're literally rearranging all of the things you're doing like Lego bricks, in the sense that what you're doing is you're trying to get them to understand that they're getting all of these different pieces here. And at the end of the day, in our little Lego set here, they get thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, thing 4, and so on. And all of these, normally if you bought 10 of these different Lego sets all together, it's going to cost you an insane amount of money. But instead, we're going to sell you the right Lego set that has all the pieces that you've been looking for to get you from your problem to your dream to where you want to be. How does that sound? This is the power of offer stacking. So to recap, what you need to focus on is essentially stop trying to get to the point where you're selling just the big thing. You want to outline each one of those structures and start to attach a price. So first, once you actually have it, stack all your pricing. Add them all together. The number of prices should equal ideally, or at least the total amount of that price of the comparable market value, or what they'd normally pay to get somebody else to do it on an individual basis if they were to hire one by one vendor to do each one of those things, should realistically be 10 to 5x the real price that you want. So if you're charging $100, then this thing should probably be, if you're charging $100, so then ideally your value stack should probably be in the neighborhood of at least $1,000. If you're charging $1,000, then this thing should ideally be a value or offer stack of $10,000 at the end of the day. Normally it would be this amount, but you know what? We're going to give you this amount with all these pieces of value here in your little Lego set that has each one of these components in here: feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4, and so on. Now, I will give you one piece of advice that is a very small caveat to this scenario. Use your critical thinking abilities to always set realistic offer stacks. If you do not do this correctly, then people just simply won't believe you. I can't tell you. Let's say, for instance, if you were selling this item here, and this is your box of whatever thing, or this is your service thing that you're offering, and all of a sudden you're bringing this to market, you have to understand that your customers and clients, they're still educated and they're still smart. So you can't anchor that to some wild out of control pricing. Let us say, for instance, that normally you said, okay, normally this thing would be $100,000, but today I'm going to give it to you for 10. What does that say in your mind? That says that either this thing is a scam, it's really cheap. What's the caveat? There has to be something that triggers a red light bulb in your head that goes, I don't know. It's the same thing with the service, which is, if you're all of a sudden saying this thing is normally $10,000 and I'm going to give it to you for $1, well, am I getting a terrible service? Am I compromising this in some way? Or are you new to this? Why is it so cheap? So use your critical thinking abilities to definitely get these to the point where you don't want to be too cheap and you don't want to be too expensive. You want to find a happy medium right here in the middle, which is your true price. And then you want to basically teeter-totter these in between, where all of a sudden you're not going too low on the scale, but you're not going too expensive on the scale. And this price should ideally line up with that. This is why we use the 10 to 5x ability, because this allows you to realistically kind of fit within that ballpark each time. Just be aware of that. Now, I promised you a fourth bonus, and this is something that you're probably going to be struggling with now that you're beginning your first offer stack. The fourth bonus, to give you a short preview of what to expect when you click on that link, is your offer stack cheat sheet. And inside this cheat sheet, you're going to get an automated process that you can use right now to skip quite a bit of this guesswork. I'm going to show you, number one, how to actually break down everything correctly, the correct technique to do it, to put yourself in that right mindset. The second thing I'm going to show you is how to price it. And then the third thing I'm going to show you is guaranteed the best way to present this thing. And this is certain techniques you can use according to if you have a low ticket or a high ticket item, which ones I have found more effective in each instance. This one is really important because this allows you to take all of what you've done here and put it into a very compelling, very hyper valuable strategy in your sales scripts, in anything that you're doing right now, so that you can have a surefire way that when they look at it, they go, oh my goodness, I have to hop on this now. So all you have to do is click on the link in the description below. That's all I have for you today. I hope you're able to take this concept of offer stacking and apply it to your business, because once you master this, your clients and customers will look at all your product or services in a whole new light. They'll understand what goes into it, what value they're getting, why you're able to start raising prices instead of competing and going lower on price, which is a race to the bottom, because you'll be able to use this technique to up your rates, to up the perceived value of your product, to ultimately educate them as to what they're getting and showcase it in a way that makes it a no-brainer for them to work with you. This whole process makes sales so much easier. All you have to do is deconstruct what you're likely already doing behind the scenes and put it front and center and reword it so that they understand why it matters to them. But until then, I hope this video was valuable to you. I would love for you to like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, I want to know what's going on in your life as a business owner, somebody who's starting it, being a freelancer, or trying to even grow their business. Comment below and just tell me what you're going through so I can make content that you want to watch that provides value to you, that ultimately gets you closer to your dream life that you've always wanted. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.